Imagine this. Pretend that a non-profit organization was formed, and through its efforts has single-handedly eliminated cancer. It now provides the cure worldwide for free to anyone who needs it. Most of the money it generates goes right back into new research instead of becoming a bonus for any of its board of directors. This organization constantly sets the bar for progress and has been praised time and time again for demonstrating how people of all races and genders should be treated. Okay, now I want you to imagine that this progressive organization was founded by one of the 9/11 hijackers. That's pretty much what Birth of a Nation is to the world of film. It's the black eye of the movie industry. It created many of the techniques still used in modern movie making, yet for all the praise you can give it, it's still a movie about the rise of the KKK and how they saved the South from black people. Well, I want to forget about that. Racism comes and goes on this show. I want to focus on the movie. How does it hold up? Does it deserve the high ratings it gets from critics because of the plot and the story, or just for the technical reasons? More importantly, is that fair? Spoiler alert, no. Let's go to my conversation with Amanda, Matt, and Melissa as we discuss Birth of a Nation. All right, so I should probably apologize to you guys because I did not mean to make you guys watch another 3.5 hour long movie.
Yes, you did. You secretly did.
Here's the thing. You know, usually with these old movies, like, you have Dracula, and that movie is it's an hour 19. And you have all these older movies that were really short because I figured the older the movies, people weren't tolerant of sitting in seats for a long period of time. And not until, like, Lord of the Rings. Apparently, I was really fucking wrong. 3.5 hours long this movie was. And this is supposed to be the pioneer of, like, most movie techniques of how a story is told. I had to watch this fucking movie, too. I watched it on a train surrounded by black people. Do you know how uncomfortable I was with that? I couldn't finish it because, like I said, I didn't know that the movie was 3 hours long. I should have checked the runtime. Melissa and I were sitting down and watching it for about 3 hours. She's dicking around on her phone and just fucking called it quit. Yeah, and I was like, I need sleep. I really need sleep. So I fell asleep, and then it's after work. I need to come home and I need to do this with you guys. Just to put this into context, this movie, as far as film history goes, is a huge deal. I mean, it's also kind of one of the biggest black eyes that movie history has. This is a movie where it innovated filming techniques such as camera placements, camera shots, basically kind of the structure of how a story is told, and it happens to be about the KKK being the good guys. You know what, let's get into a little bit of the movie history. First of all, this movie's budget was only $110,000, which, you know, nowadays is nothing, but back then it was worth a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But it grossed $3 million. Yeah. And this is for a movie that, at the time, people were decrying it as racist.
In 1950.
At the time. Now, yeah, let's think about that. With our modern mentalities, we see a movie like this and we go, yeah, that's racist. But back then, it was a different time. We're able to make all these concessions. This was before the civil rights movement. And yet, at the time, even they were like, dude, you went way too fucking far.
Wait, so when was Lincoln in office?
It was like 1860.
Yeah, it was post. I think it was like the 1860s.
But the thing is, like, okay, so the movie takes place in, you know, the mid to late 1800s. The movie was made in 1915. So clearly some views are going to change. But it's not that far off from, you know, people are still alive.
Yep.
From the time of, like, you know, 40 Acres and a Mule, and, like, you know, people were still alive in 1915 that may have remembered that.
Yeah, in fact, I think it was around this time. It was either around this time or just a little bit later where there was, like, a 50th anniversary of Gettysburg. And I guess there was only 25 people left.
Yowza.
Oh yeah, just to put the money into into more perspective. So at the time when it opened in New York City, a ticket was $2, and this was considered astronomical. So IMDb trivia tells me. I mean, this is insane. In today's money, that would be $17 to $20. So it's about the same.
An IMAX 3D.
Yeah, it's basically what we're paying already, and we're kind of like, eh. So even with that in mind, it's still like, all right, so fucking what? So like in 1915, the sensibility was that this movie was still racist, but evidently this fucking asshole, his whole thought process was, what? It's nobody is on my side where they think that this is perfectly okay. Granted, what he chose as source material was the novel The Klansman. Maybe he should have gotten a fucking hint at that point, but he didn't. So he was completely baffled, and just like today's white people, whenever they think they've offended someone, they have to go out of their way to try to prove that they're not racist. This motherfucker went so far to make another 3.5-hour long feature called Intolerance, Love and Struggle Throughout the Ages. Guess what that movie was about?
Intolerance. White people.
You're both right. It was totally about white people and intolerance and how it's bad.
Well, that's nice. He tried to kind of save it, but the fact that he quoted Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at the time of this movie, who was a known racist, really, really super bad racist. He quoted him in the movie, saying that, if we don't stop this, the blacks are going to have the whites under their boot heel. And that's okay because the president said it. So we're going to put it in the movie. And from here on out, whatever you watch is historically accurate depiction. And
which, by the way,
president is behind it.
Which, by the way, when you see this on Netflix, they have an introduction done years after the movie was made, which you can tell because it's on different film stock. I think they've actually spent more money on these intro scenes to each half because it's split into two halves. You have Act 1, I guess, or Part 1, which is the Civil War. Part 2 is Reconstruction. But it's basically, what the fuck is his name? D.W. Griffith, basically trying to say how significant this is. It looks like 30 years after the fact. And all he really does is quote the same shit that happens in the very next scene as if it's somewhat poignant. And he gives that quote that you see at the beginning of the second half to the guy who's interviewing him, which, by the way, every interview is so natural when kids come in and say, "What's going on?" "Oh, I think he's interviewing D.W. Griffith." So, yeah, he just hands this racist quote, and then he's like, what do you think about that? It's like, it doesn't change anything.
No, it doesn't change the fact that you're a racist and you made a super racist movie.
Mm-hmm.
But, ironically, the release of this film inspired African Americans to start making their own films in order to counter the film's depiction of them and try to give a more positive image of what, the African American community is like. Which, given 70s blaxploitation and Tyler Perry, I think this film is still having a negative impact on their community.
I read that the Klan was kind of dying off until this movie came out, and then they
and it resparked it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That should be another indication that maybe you fucked up.
Maybe you refueled the Klan.
So this movie is used for propaganda for the Ku Klux Klan. What? I'm shocked and appalled. You have them as the good guys. I didn't think that they would... Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You're either a liar or you're really that dumb. Racist or not, this guy did pioneer a lot of techniques. So the fact that he had what looked almost like a Steadicam shot of, soldiers on horses, and he followed them, that was revolutionary. That was not really seen before. And it's such a simple thing that, basically became obsolete like 2 movies later, because everyone's like, oh, we can use this technique and not be complete dick shits. It has become this very popular and very important piece of movie history. So everywhere you go, the reviews are glowing and positive. This has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. And I can say this now because he's a dead cold corpse. He's fucking wrong. I don't have to argue with him and hear his, Well, actually, I don't even have to. I have his very words right here. I would like to take this quote, which Roger Ebert, he's actually quoting another person, Andrew Sarris, but this is one of the major points that he tries to make in his essay about Birth of a Nation. Classic or not, Birth of a Nation has long been one of the embarrassments of film scholarship. It can't be ignored, and yet it was regarded as outrageously racist even at the time when racism was hardly a household word. See a problem there?
It was racist when racism wasn't a thing.
Yeah. Ebert spent a lot of his review discussing everything but whether or not he liked the movie, which is what a critic is supposed to do. I read the entire thing, and I'm still not sure whether he liked it or not. Most of the reviews are like that. Yes, I understand. It's revolutionary. But it's like, oh, man, this thing is incredibly racist. It's slow. It's boring. 4 stars.
I mean,
It's like,
I feel like they're talking about two different things. We're talking about content, which is the fun part of this whole podcast, making fun of the content. But I think what the critics are doing, because usually they're old white men, is staying away from the fact that it was racist and focusing on the actual technique and the make of the movie, which was revolutionary, but they're just cleverly staying away from anything that can make them look like a white dick. You know what I mean?
you can't say that something is good just because it pioneered something. It might not hold up, and it's okay to say that something is not good if it doesn't hold up. Some of the greatest movies that we know hold up regardless of when you see them. I still see movies like The Maltese Falcon, which was made in the 40s. Still great to see when I saw it in like 2006. Well, let's see what Richard Brody of The New Yorker said. Problematic, Birth of a Nation wasn't a seminal commercial spectacle, but also a decisively original work of art. In effect, the founding work of cinematic realism. So, you want to talk about the realism? The biggest problem is that the second half especially sees the black population as controlling the area, which is what prompts the KKK to come back and actually do something. They want to reclaim the South. Now, if you were to say that this is from the family's point of view, that's fine. I might even understand that. They don't develop it very well, but if you can say that, that's fine. Except that we know that's not what he's trying to do. He says that this is historically accurate, and what he's depicting did not fucking happen. You know what? During that riot, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, maybe the black population was overwhelmed the whites, and I'm sure that there was a problem with them kicking off their shoes, but there was no motherfucker dancing, eating a fucking chicken leg. I'm sure of that shit.
I enjoyed the part where being emancipated and showing that, now that you were black and in the community, you were now, an upstanding citizen. They all gained a top hat. You stood
they were
in a
passing
line.
that out.
You stood in a top hat line. You got your top hat, and you are now
a person.
You are now. Congratulations! You now have a top hat.
Yeah, and they also made it seem like the white people gave the black people a chance. There was a part where interracial marriage was legalized, and people basically did like aren't we great? That shit didn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that shit didn't happen until like the 1960s. Some parts of the South, not until the 1990s or even upwards of 2000.
I mean, wasn't it like this past year that some community in the South had their first integrated prom? Their first 2013. Their first integrated prom. Congratulations.
Oh my
Well,
God.
it's because a part of their culture. Now, this isn't racist, but a part of their culture is that black people aren't allowed.
Not that it's racist, because
No,
Woodrow
they're not.
Wilson.
No, they're not.
Woodrow
racist.
Wilson.
He's
who
the
was
president,
the
Amanda.
The people who
He said
did
the
this.
thing.
He said the thing that makes
But
it
he's the
valid.
president.
Remember, the people who set this up were racist, but we're not racist. We're just doing what our fathers did, which was
It was
racist.
super racist.
That's the funny thing about quoting the president in 1915 is that only white men could vote at the time.
Yeah, and they're like,
Super
and they've,
interesting.
but I'm sorry. That's a great point because not only is that ridiculous, but it really pissed me off when it's like, oh, well, the black people are voting, so maybe you should just take that as a sign of the democracy. But at the end, it's like, oh, the black people are voting again. It's like, oh, good, they're doing the thing that you want to do. Oh, the KKK are there, and they're pointing guns at them. You're stopping the whole thing you're trying to save for you white people.
Yeah.
And then claiming that you're being integrated and, I don't know, protagonists. But there's one great quote, and it's not from any big-name critic. It's not from anyone I know. It's from G.K. Balazzo from IMDb.com. Just some random review as I'm scrolling through these walls of text, sucking this movie's cock. I see this. Aside from the political racism, much of the second half of the film is just silly melodrama, even based on 1950 standards and other of Griffith's work. Holy shit, a criticism!
Oh.
A real, honest-to-goodness look at a movie and an opinion! And an opinion that's outside the norm. I can't even say it's outside the norm. He's admitting what everyone else has said. He's just saying, oh, by the way,
It was
this
bad.
part's not that good. And I think that's what gets to me about this movie, is that everyone who reviews it doesn't say whether or not they like it, and they don't give you much to work with. Like, they might give you a plot description, and they'll tell you all about the movie's, technical prowess, for 1915 standards. But no one will say, you know what part I really liked? The part where the KKK shot a black guy.
Like,
'Cause
I
they know-
loved when the woman was being raped in the room by a black guy.
That guy tried to marry her. Because apparently the standards in 1915 was, all right, fuck the black guys, but I swear to God, if we even try to insinuate sex without marriage, that's a big no-no, people.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the movie itself.
Okay.
What are your actual feelings about this film?
That's racist.
Well, racist isn't really a feeling. That's more of a fact of life at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. It wasn't all terrible. I thought the war parts were really well done for 1915. I was kind of awestruck.
I would have to disagree with you on the entertaining part. I will say there was a great trick that he did during those war scenes. You see, because he liked to put his camera on a fucking hill and just record everything from a distance where you can't see anything, he realized, oh, crap, I don't have a lot of actors. So he just set off a bunch of smoke bombs so you wouldn't have to worry about it. The whole thing is filled with smoke, so you can't see that there's only like 15 guys running around.
It's the first epic.
Yeah, exactly. The part where he did have a lot of actors with him on horses was at the end when the KKK won and they were the good guys and they came riding in. Mm-hmm. He had a shit ton of KKK hoods. And I was like, it was
Not
kind
the
of
volunteers.
Like, yeah, it was sort of like this feeling that I got was like, whoa, this is 1915. There are a lot of people. This is a really large scale kind of project. And that was the first feeling that I got, where it wasn't like this still camera on these two actors. They're doing whatever, And it was like this really big action scene. And I was kind of impressed with that.
That's one thing I will say, and it ties into the battles. When something big and grand was going on, he exploited the shit out of it. I saw the KKK drive by the same house like 3 or 4 times. There was the same scene of one guy pointing like 9 times. Now, I know I'm exaggerating, but there was a few times where it, like the one where it's a line of KKK men, and during several fade-outs and fade-ins, like one guy pointing, that was repeated 4 times. During the battle scenes, you'll see the same explosions go off multiple times. Nowadays, we call that shit padding because you have no time. Back then, I guess they just really wanted to linger on these epic shots. But nowadays, it's boring as shit. And I would love to take someone out of 1915 and say, this great battle, I know it blew your fucking simple minds, but didn't it go on for a little too long and almost nothing happened?
No, you can't judge a 1950 movie 100 years later by our standards.
Yeah. I know
That's
it
just
is
not
hard.
fair.
This is the
And
hard thing.
This is a racist movie that sucks, and I'm saying it's not.
Yeah,
fair.
we can actually make fun of the racism because remember, even back then they were like, dude, whoa,
Yes,
you got to tone it
I'm talking
down.
about the techniques.
But yeah, but that's the thing. Everyone comments on the techniques. Was it entertaining? I would say
For its time?
no. I'm saying now. Like, should we be praising the movie other than its technique? Should this get the 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, or should it have like a 30 with a bunch of caveats?
You can't judge it 100 years later, though. It doesn't make sense.
Well, people did, and they're fucking sucking its dick. This movie, you could say, you can't judge it all you want. 5 stars, 100%. People are judging this, and I think it should go in the opposite direction. I think people should look at this movie for what it is, but say, it's also a piece of shit. But we all have opinions for movies, and we can say till our heart's content, yes, this is a technical powerhouse, but we don't have to say, yes, this is a good movie. And I'm arguing that for what it is, I'll even go back a little ways and say, even for what it was at the time, I don't think it was that great of a movie. I don't think it was that entertaining. I thought it was overly long. I think it didn't explain anything. This was like watching a Harry Potter book, like in real life. Let's take Phantom of the Opera. Now, the Phantom of the Opera was close to when this movie was made, and they realized, hey, when people are talking on screen, maybe we should know what they're saying, because I think it might be important. This movie did not do that. It said, and now these 2 people are something. And then it would cut to 6 different scenes, and I don't care who you are, I don't know what's going on. If you were to take someone from 1915, and if you were to ask them beyond, wow, these are fun moving pictures, what they thought, they'd be like, well, it might be a little slow. I might have got a little bored, but luckily I was able to turn to my dame and offer her a fresh Chesterfield cigarette. I'm assuming. But come on. Lots of parts dragged out, and this was an event, and it had to be treated as such. And I'm sure that there were parts where people were like, I can't wait for the intermission. I cannot wait for this fucking part to be over.
Can't wait for part 2.
There's no real story, and you don't know if it's history or a plot or what it is. And unless you've read the book before, which I can't even find a Wikipedia page on this fucking book, so I don't really know how well the movie translates. I doubt a lot of people would have cared beyond what we fucking brag about today, which is the technicalities of it. Isn't it wonderful? Which, granted, if you watch it on Netflix, holy shit, you can't brag about anything technical, because the movie colors turn every color of the goddamn rainbow. I started singing The Wizard of Oz halfway through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was terrible. I'm not saying it wasn't terrible.
Okay,
I'm
good.
saying I was born 70 years after it was made.
So, let's say you have to write a review. You have to rate this movie. What would you give it on a star from 1 to 5? We're not even going to do the Roger Ebert thing. We're not going to give it 2 thumbs up your ass. You're not going to give it 4 stars out of a ridiculous even number. You have 5 stars. What would you rate this movie? With everything. And I know it's hard.
Should we make it clear that I'm the only minority in the room?
Yes.
Let's make sure that I'm not for the Klan. I think just to like ignore what it was and like what it did for the time isn't all right. I think you should judge it based on, well, I don't know if you can even do plot and character, because those things didn't really exist.
Thank you. So, anyway, getting back to the 5 stars thing, I think that, based on content versus concept and technicality, I would have to give it a solid 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 is what I was thinking.
Yeah, halfway for, the technicality of it, and then just completely missing the content.
And the fact that it's a horrible piece of crap. But there was that part where, like, I think a war came to a town, Civil War, and all those people was running, and like in the back you could see the city burning. Do you remember that? And I don't know how they did that back in that time. And I remember just thinking, if I was
they superimposed models that were burning.
Yeah, so if I was like,
it's pretty amazing.
If I was,
I know,
like,
that's
10 years old watching that, I'd be like, I've never seen this before in my life.
Like, for a movie, for what it does, it doesn't do it very well. It laid the foundation, but I think I'll give it a 1.5, and the 1.5 is just for its technical, its technical foundation alone. Everything after that, I think, is complete and utter garbage. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's, for what it tried to do, I think it failed. I don't think it's entertaining as a movie. It's not a documentary. Its place in history beyond film is non-existent.
In 2013, it's hard to say, like, yes, that would be a blockbuster. We should put it back in theaters. It's really difficult to say that. I think it's unfair to say that it wasn't entertaining for the people at the time, because the people at the time would not have seen that, and they go to the theater and they go, holy shit, how did he get that on the screen?
Yeah, they're watching a
That's
war.
things that I see in real life now. It's
Yeah.
on a screen. You know
Well,
what I mean?
I don't think most of them saw that in full. That the Reconstruction era had already passed by then.
I think to judge a movie, you have to go back to its time.
It's
Well,
You
that's
ca-
the that's
you
the
can't
whole.
be like, oh, I saw Gladiator, so this movie is
it's
stupid.
the whole reason why people still go to museums. The Venus of
Yeah.
Willendorf is the first recorded piece of art. Okay, I'm an art major, right?
Yeah,
First
we know.
First,
Now we know.
Shut up. First recorded piece of art. This little statue figurine of this like voluptuous woman with these huge boobs, and everybody goes to see it because it's the first recorded piece of art. I'm sure teenagers go to see it because of the boobs. But you know, it's like the first thing, and so many people have made so many more beautiful, sculptural, voluptuous
Yeah.
women since then. But you go back to the Venus of Willendorf because it's in a fucking museum because it's the first, number one.
Yeah, it didn't exist before that.
Well, here's what I'll say: the people who saw the movie in 1915 were not watching it for plot. I will say that.
Or boobs.
But I will say the people who also see that statue, I guarantee you they're seeing it not because it's a great work of art. They're seeing it because it's the first of something.
The first.
But they will not say it's great. Those are the same
Mr.
people who will be
Willendorf-
like, "That it was cool that I saw, but have you seen the Da Vinci?
Exactly.
Have you seen that cunt Mona Lisa hanging on the wall? Millions of people every day crowd around trying to look down her fucking shirt."
Well, think of it this way: you make a movie now. Like we made some funny movies. So imagine
They
we
were
make those
terrible.
movies. Yeah, they were terrible.
They
but
were
like
silly.
But they were great for the time.
that's what I'm saying. Imagine if you make something now and you're like,
I
oh,
would
this is
never
fun.
have anyone watch that ever.
I'm just saying
It was
it's
the
not fair
foundation.
to
You
have
could
somebody
see
judge it at
exactly-
200 years from now.
Oh yes, it would. And the fact that they do is what I'm trying to get at. I think that for what the movie is, they should judge it appropriately and put it in its context. And I think that basically putting it up there with some of the greatest movies that will stand up throughout time is horribly unfair.
Can we
It was a horrible movie.
talk about how? Okay, so content, story wise, and everything, casting. You want to portray black people as bullies, bullying around white people, and then every black person you cast is actually a white person in blackface.
Which, by the
You
way,
want to be racist in a racist movie? Like
Like,
on
how
now.
racist can you be? Let's
come on
see.
now.
which boggles the mind because it's not like there weren't black people in this movie.
They were all extras.
Yeah. But when they showed the actual black people, they were dancing and jiving and eating fucking watermelon. Did you catch that part?
Mm-hmm.
I had to look at it like really close. Like, there's no way. There's no way. Was this really? Oh my
There's
god, they
absolutely
are.
a way.
They were cartoon characters. And I guess that's what really irks me the most about this movie is how much of it they tried to claim to be real. And granted, they had real situations, real events.
Wait, did anybody say it was historically accurate or just realistic?
Actually, there were numerous points where it was like, this is an
It was-
accurate portrayal.
No, it's
They said
everyone knows
a
it's not.
historical dramatization.
Of the
Everyone,
war,
I bet you the
maybe.
people in 1950 were like, "Oh, so that's what
This
happened.
is fact.
So that's how black people act. Oh, I gotta fear them for the next 40 or 50 years." All right, so we've gone over the themes, we've gone over everything. Is there anything specifically about the movie that just really popped to you guys, like something that really stood out?
Jesus.
Yep, in this movie about realism, there sure as hell was a scene with Jesus in it.
Just chilling. It's just superimposed. I'm so excited to talk about this right now. We should back up and set the scene, really.
Is there a way to set the scene? So the movie is over. We have the conclusion of what I guess was the plot, and then there's just a whole bunch of.
Let's talk about what the conclusion of the plot is. The conclusion is the whites are now freed again. So the newly freed whites.
Because, yeah, you remember when that happened, when the whites weren't free?
Yeah, well, they were being bullied by the black people who weren't black people and just actually white people in blackface. And then, so they tried to walk on the sidewalk and they couldn't get on the sidewalk because the black people were taking over the sidewalk. So it was this whole whole war between the whites and the blacks. And then the Ku Klux Klan came in and they saved the day and refreed the white people who were never really prisoners in the first place. So obviously there had to be a parade of the Ku Klux Klan and these newly freed white people, and then just like this massive dance party.
Dance party.
So while this dance party's taking place, Jesus just comes out of nowhere and kind of reigns over the dance party. Yes, this is okay because Jesus.
Jesus wished the white people to be free because that was a problem.
And it was so.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
What an ending.
I couldn't believe. And then who was the guy on the horse with the sword beforehand?
Well, that was Satan.
That was Satan.
I don't know. It seemed like it was Satan because it seemed like that would be the person who would be rolling over this dump heap of a movie.
Yeah. Well, what was he in front of? He was in front of like all these like bodies. I don't know what he was doing. He was like stabbing the air and then doing this little head banging thing, and I didn't really know what was going on.
Oh, come on. You know what's going on. Have you ever seen a geeky guy with a sword at like a Renaissance fair? You know what he's doing. He's showing off his mad skills.
So he was just geeking out.
Yeah, he's
Except
fucking...
he was giant.
I guess.
I guess he was supposed to be like maybe one of the like spirit of war or whatever.
The spirit.
The
of
horse,
the
one of the four horsemen.
the giant.
That makes sense. But we got this dude thrashing about on a horse with a sword, and then it cuts to the dance party, and then and then Jesus is like, dance party in my
And
name.
then everybody fades away except for Jesus.
Except for Jesus, because he's always present.
And then I asked the man that where did all the black people go at the end, because I didn't actually see them get killed or anything. And then she said they went away.
Maybe they were raptured.
No, in fact, I just need to point this out because this scene really took it to me. So the whole reason the KKK come in is to save the South from blacks for the white people. Now, the black population voted these laws and everything that the white population didn't like. This is democracy. At the end of the movie, the black people go to vote. And they come out ready to vote to the KKK holding guns on them. The KKK stops democracy so that they can have democracy. That's like Jesus killing Jesus to go to heaven.
Because the white vote is the right vote.
That rhymes, so it's true.
I'm being so racist right now, you guys.
That's right, Matt. Get out of my country. There's 3 white people here, and you're the only one of color. In fact, the dog has more white on him than you.
One of these
That's
things
true.
is not like the other.
Actually, my favorite part was Congress. It was all black Congress.
The one where one guy's dancing the jig and eating like fucking fried chicken.
I just couldn't believe they did that. And then that guy doesn't have shoes, and it's like, Congress says you have to wear shoes, and then he puts his shoes on.
As weird as that is, that could have been true. I think the weirdest part to me about that scene was where it's like, and it comes up with one of the few title cards in the movie, which, by the way, those title cards piss me off because it's like, sir, we can't remove the paragraph key. Just leave it in. But, yeah, so that's one of the few title cards that come up, and it's like, and, of course, the white population was minor. And then the entire frame shrinks to this circle around where the white people were, which, given how washed out the footage was, I was actually glad because I had no idea where they were.
Well, that's the point of the movie in a nutshell, isn't it?
Too many black people.
I wonder if D.W. Griffith just, when he got called a racist, in his mind he was like, fuck, they caught me.
No.
And
it was a movie.
And then he backpedaled. And that's like, not only did he create everything that we know about movies today, but he was also the first white man to backpedal and try to prove he wasn't racist. He is a pioneer of dickheadery.
That alone in a hotel. Cerebral hemorrhage. That makes me so happy. You don't understand.
Wait, who are we talking about? The president or D.W. Griffith?
Griffith. He died alone in a hotel. He was like trying to go to the hospital, and then he just, nope, die. Not making it.
Because the world had willed it.
All right, so what are your guys' final thoughts on this movie? So, Matt, you're first. What's your final thoughts?
It's some of it was revolutionary, some of it was horrifying, and that's just what it was. It is what it is.
So, Melissa, how about you? What are your final thoughts on what you've seen?
Well, that wasn't a lot. But what I did see, I didn't like.
You gave her a lot of time to check her phone.
And what about you, Amanda? What are your last thoughts?
Well, when I first went to go watch the movie, it's this very orchestral sort of like setting into the scene, and it's black and white. You get this really nice vignette, sort of scratchy. Oh, you're settling in for like this nice maybe musical number or, you know, whatever. And then it was just racism. It was like a Ku Klux Klan propaganda movie, and it was really disturbing. Martin, why did you do that?
Why? Because I hate every last one of you. Go fuck yourselves. And there you have it. Birth of a Nation. If you have your own opinion about this movie, or you have a comment, question, concern, or just some good old-fashioned hate mail, email me at wdijwpodcast@gmail.com. In case my goofy voice somehow fucked that up for you, just remember that's the initials of the show, podcast, all one word, @gmail.com. It goes right to my phone, so in theory you could talk to me as I make notes for a new episode, eat my dinner, or drunkenly yell at the dog for shitting on the floor. If that's not enough, you can also find me on Twitter @SomeJerkFB, or on Tumblr by using whatever voodoo magic makes that shit work. Look up Some Jerk from Boston, you'll find me, I'm sure. If you want to listen to more episodes of What Did I Just Watch, they can be found on iTunes as well as Stitcher. And Matt's podcast, Sessions, can also be found on iTunes. If you enjoy horror stories, this might be something fun for you to check out. Well, that in a minute, so listen to it anyway. Before I go, if there's anything you can take away from the movie, it's this. When Congress is in session, put on your shoes, drop the chicken leg, and make your vote count before the white man shows up and supplants your democracy with his. Adios for now.